The church was full that Sunday morning. Men in crisp white shirts and women in bright ghillie and head wraps swayed to the music of the choir. Pastor Nkem stood at the pulpit, his voice booming through the microphone as he preached about love and respect in the family. His words came with a force that made the congregation nod and murmur in agreement. "A father is the head of the home," he declared, his voice rising with passion. "And in his home there must be order. Husbands, love your wives. Children, obey your parents. That is how we maintain God's plan for the family." In the front pew, Nkem sat quietly beside her mother, Chinyere. Her head was bowed, and she stared at the open Bible in her lap, though her eyes weren't reading the words. Her father's voice filled the room, but to her, it felt like noise. She could hear the gasps of admiration from the women around her and the murmured amen from the men, but it only made her grip the edge of the bench tighter. Her stomach churned. When Pastor Nkem finished his sermon, the congregation erupted in applause. He smiled wide, his white teeth flashing, and raised his hands as if to bless them all. "Let us pray," he said, and the church fell silent as everyone bowed their heads. Nkem's hands trembled as she clasped them together. She squeezed her eyes shut and whispered her own prayer. "God, please help me. Please help me." After the service, the congregation lingered outside the church, chatting and exchanging pleasantries. Pastor Nkem stood at the entrance, shaking hands with everyone who passed by. "Your sermon was powerful, sir," one man said, bowing slightly. "Thank you," Pastor Nkem replied with a warm smile. "We must always speak the truth of the Lord." Nkem stayed by her mother's side, quiet and withdrawn. Chinyere was chatting with another woman, laughing and waving her hand in the air. Nkem tried to blend into the background, wishing she could disappear. "Nkem," her father's voice called out suddenly, and she froze. Slowly, she turned to face him. His smile was wide and inviting, but she knew better. "Come here, my daughter," he said, beckoning her forward. Nkem's legs felt like they were filled with sand as she walked toward him. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm but gentle enough to seem affectionate. "This is my precious girl," he said to a group of women standing nearby. "She is obedient and humble, just as a daughter should be." The women cooed in admiration. "Ah, Pastor, you are blessed," one of them said. "Nkem is such a good girl." Nkem forced a smile, her heart pounding. Her father's hand felt like a weight pressing down on her. She wanted to pull away, to scream, but she couldn't. She knew the rules. Don't make a scene. Don't cause trouble. As they walked home after church, the silence between them was heavy. Chinyere carried a basket of yams and vegetables they had bought from the market on their way. Pastor Nkem walked ahead, his steps confident and purposeful. Nkem walked behind her mother, her eyes fixed on the ground. "Why are you walking so slowly?" Chinyere asked, glancing back at her daughter. "Are you feeling sick?" Nkem shook her head. "No, Mama." "Then hurry up. We still have to prepare lunch." Nkem quickened her pace, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about the night before, about the way her father had come into her room without knocking, about the things he'd done that made her feel like she couldn't breathe. She had wanted to tell her mother, but she knew how that conversation would go. She had tried before. "Mama, I need to tell you something," she had said one evening while they were peeling yams in the kitchen. Chinyere had looked at her with a raised eyebrow. "What is it?" Nkem's hands had trembled as she held the knife. "It's about Papa. He's been..." Her voice had cracked, and she couldn't finish the sentence. Chinyere's expression had darkened. "What are you saying, Nkem? Speak clearly." "He's been coming into my room at night," Nkem had whispered, her voice barely audible. "He touches me, Mama. He touches me in ways that..." "Stop it!" Chinyere had snapped, her voice sharp and angry. "What kind of nonsense are you saying about your father? Do you know what people would say if they heard this?" "But Mama, it's true," Nkem had pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Enough," Chinyere had said, her voice trembling with anger. "You will not speak of this again. Do you understand me? Not another word." Nkem had nodded silently, her heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. That night, she had written everything down in her journal, pouring out her pain onto the pages. It was the only place where she felt safe. Now, as they reached their home, Nkem's chest felt tight. She wanted to run, to escape, but there was nowhere to go. Inside the house, her father's voice was already filling the room, giving instructions for lunch. Chinyur, make sure the rice is soft. And don't forget the pepper soup. I have a meeting this evening. Yes, dear, Chinyur replied, bustling into the kitchen. Nkem slipped away to her room, shutting the door quietly behind her. She sat on the edge of her bed, her hands shaking as she pulled her journal from under her mattress. She opened it to a blank page and picked up her pen. Her thoughts spilled out in shaky letters. I don't know how much more I can take. Mama doesn't believe me. No one would believe me, but it's real. It's happening. Every night it happens. I feel like I'm drowning. I don't know how to make it stop. She stopped writing when she heard footsteps outside her door. Quickly, she shoved the journal back under the mattress and stood up. The door creaked open, and her father stepped in, his smile as warm and inviting as it had been in church. My precious daughter, he said, closing the door behind him. Why are you hiding in here? Kem's heart raced. She stepped back, her legs bumping against the bed. I was just resting, she stammered. He moved closer, his smile never wavering. You don't need to be afraid of me, Nkem. I'm your father. Everything I do is because I love you. Kem's throat felt dry. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't. She felt trapped, like a bird in a cage. Leave me alone, she whispered, her voice barely audible. His smile faltered for a moment, but then it returned, wider and more forced. You're just tired, he said, reaching out to touch her shoulder. Get some rest. I'll see you at dinner. He left the room, closing the door softly behind him. Nkem collapsed onto the bed, her body shaking with silent sobs. She felt like she was disappearing, piece by piece, and there was no one to save her. That night, as she lay in bed, she made a decision. She couldn't stay here anymore. She couldn't live like this. She had to find a way out. Kem couldn't sleep that night. Her decision to leave burned in her mind, but fear and doubt kept creeping in. Where would I go? How will I survive? She thought, staring at the dark ceiling. She clenched her fists tightly under the covers. She didn't have answers to those questions, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't stay in this house anymore. She had to find a way. Morning came too quickly, and with it, the usual sounds of her mother moving around the kitchen. Nkem stayed in bed, her heart racing. She didn't want to face her father, not after the way he'd come into her room the night before. But when her mother's voice called her name sharply, she knew she had no choice. Nkem, are you deaf? Chinyur's voice cut through the quiet. Come and fetch water for the beans. We don't have all day. Dragging herself out of bed, Nkem shuffled to the kitchen, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Her mother glanced at her, frowning. What is wrong with you? Why do you look like someone who hasn't slept? I'm fine, Mama, Nkem mumbled, avoiding her mother's gaze. Fine? With those red eyes? Chinyur clicked her tongue and shook her head. Anyway, hurry up. Your father wants breakfast soon. At the mention of her father, Nkem's stomach turned. She took the bucket and walked to the tap outside, her hands trembling as she filled it with water. The sound of the water splashing into the bucket was almost comforting, drowning out her racing thoughts. But as she carried the bucket back inside, the weight of it matched the heaviness in her chest. At the dining table, Pastor Nkem sat with his Bible open, scribbling notes in the margins. He didn't look up when Nkem entered the room, but she felt his presence like a shadow over her. She hurried past him, trying to stay invisible. Nkem, his voice stopped her in her tracks. Her grip on the bucket tightened. Yes, Papa, she asked, turning slowly to face him. He smiled, the same smile that made people in the village call him a good man. But to Nkem it felt cold and fake. Did you sleep well? Her mouth felt dry. Yes, Papa. Good, he said, closing his Bible and leaning back in his chair. You know, it's important for a young girl like you to be obedient and respectful. God blesses those who honor their parents. Nkem forced a nod, her heart pounding. Yes, Papa. He studied her for a moment, then waved his hand dismissively. Go and help your mother. She didn't need to be told twice. She hurried back to the kitchen, where her mother was already stirring the pot of beans. Why are you standing there like a tree? Chinyer snapped. Peel the yam. Nkem sat on the stool and started peeling, her hands moving mechanically. She didn't dare look up at her mother, afraid that her eyes would betray the storm inside her. She thought of telling her mother everything again, but the memory of her last attempt stopped her. The anger in her mother's voice, the disbelief in her eyes. It had been too much to bear. But her thoughts wouldn't leave her alone. That night came rushing back, the words she had spoken to her mother echoing in her mind. Mama, I need to tell you something, she had said, her voice trembling. Chinyer had frowned, her hands busy cutting vegetables. What is it? It's about Papa. Nkem had begun, her chest tightening with every word. He comes into my room at night, Mama. He touches me. Chinyer had frozen, her knife still in midair. For a moment, Nkem had thought she would listen. But then her mother's face hardened, and she slammed the knife onto the table. What nonsense are you saying? Mama, it's true, Nkem had said, tears streaming down her face. Stop it, Chinyer had shouted, her voice shaking with anger. How dare you say such a thing about your father? Do you know what people would think if they heard this? Do you want to destroy this family? Nkem had sobbed, her hands covering her face. But it's true, Mama. Enough! Chinyer had screamed, pointing a trembling finger at her. Not another word. Do you hear me? Not another word about this nonsense. The memory made Nkem's chest ache. She blinked back tears, trying to focus on the yam in her hands. Her mother's voice broke through her thoughts. What are you thinking about? Chinyer asked sharply. You're peeling so slowly. Are you trying to waste my time? Sorry, Mama, Nkem said quickly, speeding up her movements. Chinyer sighed and shook her head. You children of today don't understand how hard life is. When I was your age, I was already carrying firewood and cooking for my whole family. Now, even peeling yam is too much for you. Nkem didn't respond. She knew it was better to stay quiet. But as she peeled, her mind kept racing. She had to leave. She couldn't take it anymore. But she needed a plan. That evening, after dinner, Nkem sat in her room with her journal open on her lap. She wrote quickly, her pen scratching against the paper. I don't know how to do this, but I have to try. I can't stay here anymore. I need to go somewhere safe, somewhere far away. Maybe I can go to Auntie Ifeoma's house in the city. She always said I could visit her. But how do I get there? How do I leave without Papa finding me? She paused, staring at the page. Her hands trembled, but she kept writing. I'm scared, but I can't stay. I have to find a way. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made her freeze. She quickly shoved the journal under her mattress and lay down, pretending to sleep. The footsteps stopped outside her door, and she held her breath. Then they moved on, and she let out a shaky sigh. Nkem closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. She lay awake, her mind spinning with plans and fears. The darkness felt endless, but she held on to one thought. She had to escape. Nkem woke up early the next morning, her heart pounding with determination. She sat up in bed and listened carefully. The house was still quiet. Her father's loud snores echoed faintly from his room, and her mother hadn't yet begun her usual morning routine in the kitchen. It was the perfect time. She had spent the whole night planning her escape. The idea scared her, but it was better than staying. Slowly, she got out of bed and tiptoed to the corner of her room, where she kept a small bag. She quietly packed a few clothes, her journal, and the little money she had managed to save from helping her mother sell food at the market. She had overheard her mother once say that the first bus to the city left at dawn. That was her chance. As she zipped up her bag, her hands trembled. What if they catch me? What if Papa finds me? She thought. But then she remembered his smile the night before and the cold way he had looked at her. She couldn't stay. She wouldn't. Taking a deep breath, She opened her door slowly, wincing as it creaked slightly. She paused, listening for any movement. Nothing. Quietly, she stepped into the hallway and made her way to the front door. Her heart raced with every step. When she reached the door, she carefully slid the bolt open and stepped outside. The cool morning air hit her face, and she felt a flicker of hope. As she walked quickly toward the road, she heard a voice behind her. "Nkem, where are you going?" She froze, her blood turning to ice. Slowly, she turned around and saw her mother standing in the doorway, her wrapper loosely tied around her waist, her face filled with confusion. "Mama," Nkem stammered, clutching her bag tightly. I was going to the market early. To help you." Chinyur's eyes narrowed as she stepped closer. "With a bag? What are you hiding in there?" "Nothing, Mama," Nkem said quickly, trying to sound calm. Chinyur's gaze hardened. "Nkem, don't lie to me. What is going on? Why are you leaving the house so early? Tell me the truth now." Nkem's heart pounded in her chest. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her mother's voice grew sharper. "Are you running away?" Chinyur asked, her voice rising. "Where do you think you will go? Do you know what will happen to you out there? Do you want to bring shame to this family?" Nkem's hands shook as she clutched her bag. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Mama, I can't stay here," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't." Chinyur frowned, her expression shifting from anger to confusion. "What do you mean you can't stay? This is your home. Your father and I are here to protect you." Nkem let out a bitter laugh, tears streaming down her face. "Protect me? From what, Mama? From Papa?" Her voice cracked, and she took a step back. "You don't believe me. You never believe me." Chinyur's face tightened, but she didn't respond. Nkem continued, her words spilling out like a dam that had broken. "You told me to stop talking about it. You said I was lying. But I wasn't, Mama. I wasn't," she cried. "Every night he comes into my room. Every night, her voice faltered, and she looked away, unable to finish. Chinyur's lips trembled. "Nkem, stop this nonsense. Do you know what you're saying?" "Yes, I know what I'm saying," Nkem said firmly, wiping her tears. "I'm saying that I can't live like this anymore. I'm saying that I'd rather be anywhere else than here, even if it means running away." Chinyur stared at her daughter, her face pale. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she shook her head and said, "You can't leave. What will people say? Do you want to disgrace this family? Your father is a pastor. He is a man of God. You can't do this." Kem's chest tightened. "Mama, you care more about what people will say than about me. You care more about Papa's reputation than about what he's doing to me." "That is not true," Chinyur shouted, her voice shaking. "I care about you, Nkem. You are my child. But this thing you're saying about your father, it's impossible. It's not true." "It is true," Nkem said softly, her voice filled with pain. "You just don't want to see it." The silence between them was heavy. Chinyur's hands trembled as she looked at her daughter. Nkem wiped her tears and took a deep breath. "Mama, I'm leaving," she said quietly. "You can try to stop me, but I'll find a way. I have to." Chinyur's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't move. She stood frozen in the doorway as Nkem turned and walked away, her bag slung over her shoulder. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she didn't look back. When Nkem reached the main road, she saw the first bus to the city pulling up. She ran to it, her heart pounding. The driver gave her a curious look but didn't ask any questions as she handed him her money and climbed aboard. She found a seat by the window and sat down, clutching her bag tightly. As the bus began to move, she stared out the window, watching her village disappear behind her. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing. She was free. The journey to the city was long and tiring. Nkem's mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. She thought of her Auntie Ifioma, her mother's younger sister who lived in the city. Auntie Ifioma had always been kind to her, always telling her to come visit. Maybe she would help. When the bus finally arrived in the city, Nkem stepped off, her heart pounding with both fear and determination. She didn't know where Auntie Ifioma lived, but she had her phone number written in her journal. She found a small shop nearby and asked the owner if she could borrow a phone to make a call. The man looked at her curiously. "Are you lost?" he asked. "No," Nkem said quickly. "I just need to call someone. Please." The man hesitated, then handed her his phone. Nkem quickly dialed Auntie Ifioma's number, her hands trembling. The phone rang several times before a voice answered. "Hello, Auntie Ifioma. It's me, Nkem," she said, her voice shaking. "I need your help." The phone line crackled slightly, but Auntie Ifioma's voice came through loud and clear. "Nkem? What's wrong, my dear? Are you okay?" Nkem's throat tightened, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. "Auntie Ifioma," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I need your help. I ran away from home." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, Auntie Ifioma's voice grew firm and urgent. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm at the bus park," Nkem said, glancing around nervously. "I don't know what to do. I didn't know where else to go." "Stay right there," Auntie Ifioma said quickly. "Don't move. I'll come and get you. Just wait for me. Can you do that, Nkem?" Nkem nodded, even though her aunt couldn't see her. "Yes, Auntie. I'll wait. Good girl. I'm coming now. Don't talk to anyone. Okay? Just stay put." "Okay," Nkem said softly. She handed the phone back to the shop owner and thanked him quietly before sitting down on a bench near the edge of the park. Her hands clutched her bag tightly, and she kept her eyes down, avoiding the curious glances of strangers passing by. Minutes felt like hours as she waited, her mind racing with thoughts of what might happen next. What if her father came looking for her? What if Auntie Ifioma couldn't help her? The fear gnawed at her, but she reminded herself that leaving was the only way to escape the nightmare at home. After what felt like an eternity, Nkem saw a small car pull up to the bus park. The driver's side door opened, and Auntie Ifioma stepped out. She was a tall woman with a confident stride, her bright Ankara dress standing out in the sea of muted colors. When her eyes landed on Nkem, they softened with concern. "Nkem," Auntie Ifioma said, rushing over to her. She knelt down and pulled Nkem into a tight hug. "Oh, my dear, what happened? Are you okay?" Nkem burst into tears, burying her face in her aunt's shoulder. "Auntie, I couldn't stay there anymore. Couldn't. He, Her voice broke, and she couldn't bring herself to say more. Auntie Ifioma's arms tightened around her. "It's okay, Nkem. You don't have to say anything right now. You're safe with me. Let's go home. Okay?" Nkem nodded, wiping her tears as Auntie Ifioma helped her into the car. The drive to her aunt's house was quiet, but Nkem felt a sense of relief she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she felt like she could breathe. When they arrived at Auntie Ifioma's house, Nkem stepped inside and looked around. The small apartment was cozy, with colorful curtains and a faint smell of spices in the air. Auntie Ifioma led her to the living room and sat her down on the couch. "Nkem, can you tell me what happened?" Auntie Ifioma asked gently, sitting beside her. "Why did you run away?" Nkem hesitated, her hands twisting in her lap. "It's Papa," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. He's been hurting me. For a long time." Auntie Ifioma's eyes widened in shock. "Hurting you? What do you mean?" "Nkem, you have to tell me everything." Tears streamed down Nkem's face as she began to speak. "He comes into my room at night. He touches me, Auntie. I told Mama, but she didn't believe me. She said I was lying. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to leave." Auntie Ifioma's expression hardened. Her jaw clenched. That man. How dare he? How could he do this to his own daughter? Her voice shook with anger, but when she looked at Nkem, her eyes were full of compassion. "Nkem, you did the right thing by coming to me. You're safe now. He can't hurt you anymore." Nkem nodded, though the fear still lingered in her chest. "What if he comes looking for me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if he finds me?" Auntie Ifioma placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. He won't find you. I'll make sure of it. And if he tries, he'll have to answer to me. Her voice was firm, and Kem felt a small spark of hope. The next few days passed in a blur. Auntie Ifioma helped Nkem settle into her new home, buying her clothes and food and making sure she felt comfortable. But the pain and fear didn't disappear overnight. Nkem often woke up in the middle of the night, her heart racing, the memories of her father's actions haunting her dreams. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Auntie Ifioma turned to her. Nkem, I think we need to report this. Your father can't get away with what he's done. Nkem's eyes widened. Report it? To the police? Yes, Auntie Ifioma said firmly. What he did is a crime. He has to face the consequences. And it's not just about you, Nkem. What if he's done this to someone else? What if he hurts someone else in the future? Nkem hesitated, fear gripping her. But what if no one believes me? He's a pastor. Everyone loves him. They'll think I'm lying. Auntie Ifioma shook her head. Not everyone will believe him, Nkem. And even if some people doubt you, the truth matters. You matter. We have to try. Nkem looked down, her fingers twisting the hem of her dress. The thought of facing her father again terrified her. But she knew Auntie Ifioma was right. Okay, she said quietly. Let's do it. Auntie Ifioma's face softened, and she pulled Nkem into a hug. You're so brave, my dear. We'll do this together. You're not alone. The next day, they went to the police station. Nkem's hands shook as she recounted her story to the officer. But Auntie Ifioma stayed by her side, holding her hand. The officer listened carefully, taking notes and nodding. We'll investigate this, the officer said when Nkem finished. Thank you for coming forward. It's not easy to speak about these things, but you've done the right thing. As they left the station, Nkem felt a mix of emotions. Relief, fear, and a glimmer of hope. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she had a chance to fight back. The days after reporting to the police felt like a whirlwind for Nkem. She had never been so nervous in her life. Auntie Ifioma stayed close by, encouraging her to eat and rest. But it was hard to feel calm when the weight of her actions felt so heavy. Would they arrest her father? Would people find out? What if he denied everything? One afternoon, as Nkem sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her, Auntie Ifioma walked in with a determined expression. Nkem, she said, sitting beside her. We need to talk. Nkem's chest tightened. What is it, Auntie? Auntie Ifioma reached for her hand. The police called me. They went to your village to investigate. They spoke to some people, and they found others. Nkem frowned, confused. Others? What do you mean? Auntie Ifioma's voice softened. Other girls, Nkem. They found other girls who said your father hurt them too. They were scared to speak up before, but when the police came, they told the truth. Nkem's heart sank. Her father's face flashed in her mind, and she felt sick. Other girls? How many? 2, Auntie Ifioma said, squeezing her hand. 2 girls from your village came forward. Nkem, what you did reporting him gave them the courage to speak. You've already made a difference. Nkem's hands trembled. I didn't know. I didn't think there were others. You couldn't have known, Auntie Ifioma said gently. But now you know you're not alone. And you've helped them. That's something to be proud of. Nkem nodded, but her stomach was still in knots. What happens now? The police are building a case, Auntie Ifioma explained. They'll need more evidence, but with your testimony and the others, it's a strong start. It's not over yet, but we're on the right path. Nkem's mind raced with questions. What about Mama? Did they talk to her? Auntie Ifioma's face darkened slightly. Yes, they did. She denied everything, Nkem. She said she didn't believe you. But that's not surprising, is it? Nkem looked down, her heart aching. No, it's not. She's always been like that. She cares more about him than me. Maybe she's scared, Auntie Ifioma said softly. Or maybe she's in denial. But that doesn't change the truth. You're doing the right thing, Nkem. Even if she can't see it, Tears welled up in Kem's eyes. It hurts, Auntie. It hurts so much that she doesn't believe me. She's my mother. She's supposed to protect me. Auntie Ifioma pulled her into a hug. I know, my dear. I know it hurts. But you have me now. You're not alone. And no matter what happens, I'll stand by you. Nkem buried her face in her aunt's shoulder, her tears soaking the fabric of her dress. For the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope, even through the pain. The next day, the police officer handling the case called Auntie Ifioma and asked if Nkem could come to the station again. They wanted her to give a more detailed statement and answer some questions. Nkem's stomach churned at the thought, but Auntie Ifioma promised to be there every step of the way. When they arrived at the station, the officer greeted them with a kind smile. Hello, Nkem. Thank you for coming back. I know this isn't easy, but you're very brave. Nkem nodded, clutching Auntie Ifioma's hand tightly. Thank you, sir. They led her to a small room where another officer was waiting. The room was plain, with a table and 2 chairs. Auntie Ifioma stayed beside her, holding her hand as the officer began to ask questions. Nkem, we need you to tell us everything you remember about what happened, the officer said gently. Take your time. We're here to listen. Nkem took a deep breath, her hands trembling. She looked at Auntie Ifioma, who nodded encouragingly. Then she began to speak. She told them about the nights her father came into her room, the way he touched her and whispered lies about how it was their secret. She told them how she had tried to tell her mother, only to be silenced and ignored. She spoke about the fear, the shame, and the overwhelming sadness that had consumed her. The officers listened intently, taking notes and nodding. One of them occasionally asked questions to clarify details, but they never rushed her. They treated her with kindness, which made it a little easier for her to open up. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then the first officer spoke. Nkem, I want you to know how proud we are of you. What you've done today is incredibly brave. You've helped us understand what happened, and that will help us make sure justice is served. Nkem nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. After the interview, Auntie Ifioma took her out for a small treat. They sat at a roadside stall, eating meat pies and drinking cold soda. For the first time in weeks, Nkem felt a small sense of relief. You did so well today, Auntie Ifioma said, smiling at her. I'm so proud of you, Nkem. Nkem smiled back, though her heart still felt heavy. Thank you, Auntie. I just hope it makes a difference. It will, Auntie Ifioma said firmly. It already has. You've shown so much courage, and that's something no one can take away from you. Nkem nodded, feeling a small flicker of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, she felt like she wasn't walking it alone. The days after the police interview passed slowly. Nkem tried to keep herself busy, but it wasn't easy. Every time the phone rang, her heart would race, wondering if it was news about her father. Auntie Ifioma did her best to keep her distracted, but Nkem could tell her aunt was worried too. One afternoon, as they sat in the living room, Auntie Ifioma's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and frowned. It's the police, she said, looking at Nkem. Let me answer this. Nkem nodded, her hands gripping the edge of the couch. She watched as Auntie Ifioma walked to the corner of the room and answered the call. Hello? Yes, this is Ifioma, her aunt said, her voice steady. Yes, she's here with me. There was a long pause, and Nkem could see the worry deepen on her aunt's face. I understand. Thank you for letting me know. We'll be ready. When Auntie Ifioma ended the call, she turned back to Nkem, her expression serious but calm. Nkem, the police have arrested your father, she said. Nkem felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, fear, and sadness all at once. They arrested him? She whispered. Auntie Ifioma nodded. Yes, they said he denied everything at first, but with your statement and the other girls' testimonies, they had enough evidence to hold him. He's in custody now, but there's still a lot to do. They'll need you to testify in court. The word court sent a chill through Nkem. She had never been to a courtroom before, and the thought of standing in front of strangers to talk about what her father had done filled her with dread. "I have to testify?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes, my dear," Auntie Ifioma said gently. "It's important. The judge needs to hear your story so they can understand what really happened. But you won't be alone. I'll be there with you every step of the way." Nkem looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting nervously. "What if I can't do it? What if I mess up? What if no one believes me?" Auntie Ifioma reached out and took her hand. "Nkem, you are stronger than you think. You've already come this far. You've faced so much and you're still standing. I know it's scary, but you don't have to do it alone. I'll be there, and the truth will be on your side." Nkem nodded slowly, her aunt's words giving her a small spark of courage. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll do it." The day of the court hearing came faster than Nkem expected. Auntie Ifioma helped her get ready, choosing a simple dress for her to wear and tying her braids neatly. "You look beautiful," Auntie Ifioma said, smiling at her. Nkem tried to smile back, but her stomach was in knots. "I'm so nervous, Auntie," she admitted. "That's okay," Auntie Ifioma said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's normal to feel this way, but remember you're not alone. I'm right here with you." When they arrived at the courthouse, Nkem's heart pounded in her chest. The building was large and intimidating, with people bustling in and out. Auntie Ifioma held her hand as they walked inside, guiding her to the waiting area. A police officer met them there and explained what would happen. "You'll be called to the stand to give your testimony," he said kindly. "Just speak the truth. The judge and the lawyers will ask you some questions, but take your time. If you don't understand something, it's okay to say so." Nkem nodded, though her hands were shaking. She glanced at Auntie Ifioma, who gave her a reassuring smile. "You've got this," her aunt said softly. When it was time for her to testify, Nkem felt like her legs were made of lead. She walked to the witness stand, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. The courtroom was quiet, all eyes on her. She swallowed hard and took her seat. The judge, a kind-looking woman with glasses, spoke first. "Can you state your name for the record?" "Nkem Ifani," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The judge nodded. "Thank you, Nkem. Now, can you tell us what happened?" Nkem took a deep breath, her hands clutching the edge of the stand. She began to speak, her voice trembling at first but growing steadier as she went on. She told them everything. How her father would come into her room at night, how he told her to keep it a secret, how she tried to tell her mother but wasn't believed. As she spoke, she felt the weight of her words filling the room. Some people in the audience gasped softly, while others sat in stunned silence. Nkem kept her eyes on the judge, focusing on her kind expression to give herself strength. When she finished, the lawyer for the prosecution stepped forward. "Nkem, thank you for sharing your story," he said. "I know this isn't easy. Can you tell us how you felt during those times?" Nkem hesitated, her throat tightening. "I felt scared," she said finally. "I felt trapped, like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to tell someone, but I didn't think anyone would believe me. I felt alone." The lawyer nodded, his expression serious. "And how do you feel now, knowing that you've come forward?" Nkem thought for a moment. I feel scared still, but I also feel a little stronger. I know I did the right thing." The lawyer smiled. "Thank you, Nkem." No further questions. The defense lawyer approached next. He was a tall man with a stern face, and his questions were sharper. "Nkem, you said your father hurt you, but can you explain why your mother didn't believe you? Could it be that she thought you were making it up?" Nkem's stomach twisted, but she held her ground. "She didn't want to believe me because she didn't want to face the truth. But I wasn't lying." The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "And why should we believe you now?" Nkem's hands tightened into fists. "Because it's the truth," she said firmly. "I know what happened to me, and the other girls who spoke up, they know too. We're not lying." The defense lawyer studied her for a moment, then stepped back. No further questions. As Nkem left the stand, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Auntie Ifioma was waiting for her, and she pulled Nkem into a tight hug. You were amazing, she said, her voice filled with pride. I'm so proud of you, Nkem. Nkem felt tears well up in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of relief. She had faced her fear, and though the journey wasn't over, she knew she had taken a big step toward justice. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the next phase of the trial began. Nkem sat beside Auntie Ifioma, her heart pounding in her chest. The testimonies she had given were done, but the defense had called on witnesses, and now it was time for the people from her village to speak. She gripped Auntie Ifioma's hand tightly. Auntie, what if they say things that make it seem like I'm lying? What if? Auntie Ifioma squeezed her hand gently. Nkem, you've already done the hardest part. No matter what anyone says, the truth is on your side. You've been brave, and that matters more than anything. Nkem nodded, but her stomach churned. She watched as a woman she recognized from the village stepped up to the stand. It was Mama Ebel, one of the women who often sold goods with her mother in the market. The defense lawyer stepped forward. Mama Ebel, thank you for coming today. You've known Pastor Nkem for a long time, haven't you? Mama Ebel nodded. Yes, for many years. He's a good man. A man of God. Nkem's chest tightened. She glanced at Auntie Ifioma, who gave her a reassuring nod. And in all those years, the lawyer continued, have you ever seen anything that made you suspect he could do the things he's being accused of? Mama Ebel shook her head firmly. Never. Pastor Nkem has always been kind and respectful. He helps people. He even pays school fees for children whose parents can't afford it. These accusations, they don't sound like him. The lawyer nodded, looking pleased. Thank you, Mama Ebel. No further questions. As Mama Ebel stepped down, Nkem felt her stomach twist. The next witness was called. It was her mother. Chinyer walked to the stand, her face unreadable. Nkem's heart pounded as she watched her mother take the oath and sit down. The defense lawyer approached her with a confident smile. Chinyer, you're the wife of Pastor Nkem, correct? Yes, Chinyer said, her voice steady. You've lived with him for many years. Can you tell the court about his character at home? Chinyer's gaze flickered to Nkem for a brief moment before she spoke. He is a good man, a devoted father and husband. He cares about his family. Nkem's chest ached as she listened. She wanted to scream, to stand up and yell that it wasn't true. But Auntie Ifioma's hand on hers kept her grounded. And these accusations, the lawyer continued, do they seem true to you? Chinyer hesitated for the briefest moment. No, she said finally. I don't believe them. My husband is not capable of such things. The defense lawyer nodded. Thank you. No further questions. As Chinyer left the stand, Nkem felt tears prick her eyes. Her own mother didn't believe her. The thought was like a knife twisting in her heart. The prosecutor stood and approached Chinyer as she began to leave. Excuse me, Chinyer. I have a few questions for you. Chinyer paused, looking wary. Yes. You said you don't believe the accusations against your husband, but are you aware that 2 other girls from your village have come forward with similar stories? The prosecutor asked, her tone calm but firm. Chinyer frowned. I heard about it, but I don't know those girls well. People say all kinds of things. And your daughter, Nkem, the prosecutor continued, gesturing toward her. Do you think she is lying as well? Chinyer's eyes flickered to Nkem again. She must be confused. Maybe she misunderstood something. Confused, the prosecutor repeated. Nkem has given a detailed account of what happened to her. She even tried to tell you about it. Do you remember that? Chinyer's lips pressed into a thin line. She came to me once, but it didn't make sense. I didn't know what to believe. So you didn't investigate further? You didn't ask your husband about it? No, Chinyer admitted, her voice faltering. I didn't. The prosecutor's voice softened. Chinyer, I know this is hard, but your daughter was brave enough to speak up. Don't you think she deserves your support? Chinyer looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she said, I don't know. I need time to think. The prosecutor nodded. Thank you, Chinyer. No further questions. As Chinyer left the stand, Nkem felt a mixture of anger and sadness. She wanted her mother to believe her, to stand up for her, but it seemed like Chinyere was still trapped in denial. Auntie Ifeoma leaned close to her. Don't lose hope, Nkem. The truth is coming out, little by little. Just hold on. Nkem nodded, wiping her eyes. She had to hold on. She had to believe that justice would prevail. The final day of the trial arrived, and Nkem could feel the weight of it in every corner of the courtroom. The air felt heavy, the room unusually quiet as everyone waited for the closing arguments. Nkem sat beside Auntie Ifeoma, her hands tightly clasped in her lap. This was it. Everything came down to this day. The prosecutor was the first to speak. She stood up and adjusted her glasses before addressing the judge and jury. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, she began, her voice steady and clear. This case is about courage. It's about a young girl who found the strength to speak out against the person who should have protected her the most. Nkem's testimony, along with the testimonies of the other victims, paints a clear and heartbreaking picture of what happened. Nkem listened, her heart pounding as the prosecutor continued. Pastor Nkem has spent years building a reputation as a man of God, the prosecutor said, her tone sharp. But beneath that reputation lies a man who abused his power and preyed on those who trusted him. He used his position to silence his victims, to make them feel helpless and alone. But today, those victims have found their voices. They have stood before you and told you the truth. The prosecutor turned slightly, looking directly at Nkem. Nkem has shown incredible bravery. She has faced not only the trauma of what happened to her, but also the disbelief and rejection from her own family. Yet she stood here and told her story because she believed in justice. She believed that you, the jury, would listen to her and see the truth. Nkem's chest tightened as tears welled up in her eyes. Auntie Ifeoma reached over and squeezed her hand. We cannot undo what has been done to these girls, the prosecutor continued, her voice softening. But we can give them justice. We can show them that their voices matter, that the truth matters. Pastor Nkem must be held accountable for his actions. I urge you to consider the evidence, the testimonies, and the pain these victims have endured. Thank you. The prosecutor sat down and the defense lawyer stood up. He adjusted his tie and walked slowly to the center of the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he began, his voice calm and measured. This case is not as simple as it seems. My client, Pastor Nkem, is a respected member of his community, a man who has dedicated his life to helping others. These accusations against him are shocking, yes, but they are also unproven. Nkem's fists clenched in her lap as she listened. We must remember that in a case like this, emotions can run high, the lawyer continued. But emotions are not evidence. Pastor Nkem has denied these allegations from the beginning, and he deserves the presumption of innocence. The testimonies you've heard are heartbreaking, yes, but they lack corroborating evidence. There is no physical proof, no witnesses to these alleged events. Can we really convict a man based on words alone? Nkem felt anger bubble up inside her. She wanted to shout that her words were the truth, that she wasn't lying. But she stayed silent, gripping Auntie Ifeoma's hand tightly. I urge you to think carefully, the lawyer said, his tone almost pleading. Think about the consequences of your decision. A man's life and reputation are at stake. Thank you. As the lawyer returned to his seat, the judge addressed the jury. You will now retire to deliberate. Take your time and consider the evidence carefully. When you've reached a decision, let us know. The jury stood and filed out of the room. Nkem's stomach churned as the minutes turned into hours. Auntie Ifeoma stayed by her side, whispering words of comfort. You've done everything you could, Nkem, she said softly. Now it's in their hands. Finally, the jury returned. The room fell silent as they took their seats. The foreperson stood, holding a piece of paper. Have you reached a verdict? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor, the foreperson replied. We find the defendant, Pastor Nkem, guilty on all charges. The courtroom erupted. Gasps and murmurs filled the air, and Nkem felt a wave of relief wash over her. Tears streamed down her face as she turned to Auntie Ifeoma, who pulled her into a tight hug. You did it, Nkem, Auntie Ifioma whispered. Justice has been served. As the judge delivered the sentence, Nkem felt a strange sense of closure. Her father would face the consequences of his actions, and she had taken the first steps toward healing. It wasn't the end of her journey, but it was a start. Outside the courtroom, reporters gathered, their cameras flashing as Nkem and Auntie Ifioma walked out. One reporter stepped forward, holding a microphone. Nkem, how do you feel now that the trial is over? She asked. Nkem hesitated, then said softly, I feel free. For the first time in a long time, I feel free.